Two brothers, bound by blood but divided by betrayal. When fate grants them a second chance, the truth unfolds differently this time. Justice replaces lies, and redemption takes root where ambition once ruled. This is a story of integrity, accountability, and the power of change. Will the scheming brother finally face the consequences of his own actions? Arlen had always believed that a good heart was armor enough. In the city's glass and steel atrium where their family company, Lumenwell, stood like a lighthouse, he chose the unglamorous work, listening to junior designers, sitting with the logistics team during late deliveries, walking the production floor to shake hands and call people by their first names. His brother Darius, the face of the brand, preferred spotlights that turned toward him with a single clap. Where Arlen's strength was patience, Darius's gift was performance. The fracture didn't appear all at once. It hairlined through calendars and board decks, widened through whispered doubts and missing files. Procurement ledgers bled numbers that Arlen couldn't trace. He asked questions, and Darius smiled too widely, telling him to trust the timing. Then came the audit, announced with the theater of surprise, cameras in the lobby, hushed managers filing into conference rooms with bottles of water and paper cups no one drank. The results were brutal. A pattern of approvals linked to Arlen's credentials, rubber-stamped for a vendor that didn't exist. An account only he and Darius had access to. A press leak synchronized to the hour the board convened. In the tense soft glow of the boardroom, Arlen's voice shook but did not break. "This isn't me," he said. Darius pressed a hand to his shoulder with a sympathy that felt like glue. "We all make mistakes," he murmured for the microphones. By evening, Arlen was asked to step down, for the integrity of the brand. He packed a box under the eyes of security, passing the wall of photographs where he and Darius as boys held a pair of scissors together, ribbon trembling before their first office opened. The elevator ride down felt like falling into a quiet well. Outside, night moved like a slow tide. Traffic lights swam through rain. Arlen walked until the city thinned into the riverfront, until the wind had no buildings to comb through. He sat on a bench with a single working lamp and allowed the rain to erase the day. The story could have ended there. Reputation emptied, savings marbled through lawyers' bills, his mother's voice over the phone trying to stitch comfort out of the words, "Maybe this is a sign." But fate can be a quiet engineer. When Arlen finally slept, face against the cool wood of his own kitchen table, phone buzzing itself breathless, he dreamed of the atrium clocks unwinding. The hands traced backward with the hush of a tide reversing, glass letters unshattering into their frames, emails resealing themselves into drafts. He woke to light that felt wrong and a calendar app showing a date 12 months earlier. Coffee sloshed. He flicked the news on, mouth going dry at headlines he remembered from last year. His phone lit with a message from Darius. "Big week. Smile ready." The world had reset to the year before the audit. Arlen feared madness first, miracle second. He ran small experiments, a stock price he recalled from memory, a game score he knew would surprise the city. Each landed exactly where his memory placed it. By mid-morning, fear had been replaced by a sober clarity. He was alive in the lost year, given knowledge, not power. He could not force the river, but he could read its bends. If the same scheme would one day lift Darius and drown him, he could build dams, light warnings, plant markers. If fate had given him a second dawn, it asked him to wake differently. He did not think of revenge. He thought of truth. He thought of everyone who had stood up for him with small acts. The custodian pressing a cup of tea into his hands the night the first rumor ran. The junior analyst who sent a midnight email with the subject line, "I believe you." If there was a way to change the story without breaking people, he would find it. He wrote a list in a notebook with a sturdy spine. Records. People. Patterns. Mercy. He underlined mercy twice and felt the words settle in his chest like a warm stone. When he walked into Lumenwell the next day, forward in a past only he remembered, the atrium smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and beginnings. He told himself, no grand gestures, no speeches, quiet work. Build alarms that cannot be silenced. And when the moment arrived, because it would, He would let the schemer step into the light he had prepared, the very light Darius had once shone on him. Not to burn him, but to show him himself. Arlen's first act was humble. He asked for time with the compliance team. He framed it as future-proofing growth, which made the CFO smile and the board lean in just enough. He proposed an internal protocol that seemed boring enough to pass, but carried teeth. Every single vendor approval above a modest threshold would require multi-factor verification tied to 2 separate departments. All sign-offs would generate automatic mirror logs. One stored where everyone expected, one encrypted in a location only the compliance lead and an external auditor could access. He didn't fight to be the hero authoring the policy. He suggested a junior manager, Maris, present the improvements. She had sharp eyes and a kind impatience for waste. In the meeting, Darius praised the modernization, oblivious to the trapdoor quietly sealed just beneath his routines. Arlen felt the planet tilt a degree toward fairness. Next, he rebuilt relationships with the people he had failed to protect the first time. He met with procurement analysts in their cramped corner, bringing muffins and leaving with a map of how approvals actually flowed. He asked the night shift warehouse lead what rush order meant on the ground, how it changed hands and hours. He listened more than he spoke, filling his notebook with arrows and the names of the unnoticed. In the margins he wrote, "When the storm hits, protect them." Because it would hit. Darius thrived on storms. He called them weather opportunities. He had a talent for walking through chaos with a spotless suit. The vendor that didn't exist, Arlen now knew its name before it was born. Sableroot Logistics. Last time, it had appeared like fog around a bridge, plausible at a glance and deadly at the steps. This time, Arlen seeded the ground ahead of it with questions disguised as curiosity. What would we require if a new vendor appeared to handle overflow? Could we test a verification drill to keep our list clean? Together with Maris, he installed a vendor onboarding portal that looked sleek but demanded real documents cross-checked against independent registries. Sableroot, should it knock, would find the latch too high to slip. He also tended to the board, those heat sensors for risk and optics. Without lecturing, he asked for quarterly pre-audits by an outside firm, not to catch wrongdoing but to celebrate clean processes in investor reports. The board liked the spin. He liked the net. At home at night, the old timeline sometimes clawed at him, memories spooling like film. He would see the exact moment Darius's hand touched his shoulder, warmth like a lie, and he would pace the kitchen until the presence settled in again. He refused to hate. Hatred is a compass that points only at itself. Instead, he breathed through a single intention. Prepare a mirror. Let him see. Weeks became a quiet architecture of safeguards. Arlen trained teams on traceable approvals, gifting them language to push back when anyone, yes, even a charming executive, asked for shortcuts. He commissioned a dashboard where anyone with proper clearance could see approval chains as elegant lines. The beauty of it made people proud to do things correctly. He built culture from the small up. Darius noticed only the benefits. "Look at you," he said one afternoon in the elevator, clapping Arlen's back. "You've made the machine sing." The elevator chimed at the top floor like a bell at a wedding. Arlen smiled. He thought, the song is truth. But truth without courage is a locked room. Arlen had to step through it when he found the first shadow. A routine check flagged a request from Darius's office to expedite payments to a preferred partner that no one had heard of. The name wasn't Sableroot, it was cleverer, brighter span fulfillment, and came pre-packaged with a slick website. The onboarding portal rejected it 3 times for a mismatch in tax records. Instead of confronting Darius, Arlen wrote an email to the whole executive team, proud of the portal catching inconsistencies. "Let's keep celebrating clean partners. Here's the data." He attached the rejection log and CC'd the outside auditor as if it were the most natural thing in the world. 2 days later, Brighter-span dissolved like smoke. In the hallway, Darius was all easy grin. "Looks like your system works," he said. "We dodged a bullet." Arlen kept his voice light. "That's the point of guardrails," he replied. "They protect us from ourselves." He was not naive. He knew the scheme would mutate like a clever virus. But each mutation taught the body to respond faster. The company became a place where sunlight was not an event, but a climate. And in that climate, showmanship grew tiring. Even the board began to prefer substance over sizzle. On a Friday evening, long after most had left, Arlen stood in the atrium and felt something he hadn't felt the first time through the year. Readiness. Not the kind that spoils for a fight, but the kind that has stocked the pantry, checked the weather, texted the neighbors. He walked past the photos on the wall. The ribbon, the scissors, two boys leaning toward a future neither fully understood. He touched the glass with his fingertips and whispered, "May we become better than our worst timelines." The turning point came not with a dramatic email, but with a small discrepancy in a shipping manifest. A truck that should have been full of light fixtures arrived with half its inventory, redirected due to route optimization. The optimization led to a warehouse the company didn't rent. Maris flagged it, and Arlen asked for gentle verification first. Call the driver, check the GPS pings, compare sign-in sheets. What emerged was a pattern of phantom waypoints hidden inside legitimate routes. In the old timeline, this was where Arlen had been accused of orchestrating a labyrinth to siphon product. This time, the labyrinth lit up under the dashboard's new oddity layer. A view he'd quietly funded that made anomalies draw themselves like neon threads on a dark map. The not-quite warehouse resolved into a real address linked to a shell company that, if you peeled back the plywood, linked to an investment group Darius had referenced in a podcast as friends of the brand. Arlen did not storm into Darius's office. He convened an ordinary meeting. Operations, compliance, legal, a few select managers who understood the floor as well as the figures. He opened with gratitude. For the people who unloaded trucks in the rain, for the analysts who triple-checked numbers no one would celebrate on social media. Then he pulled up the map. He let the room see it draw itself clean. The outside auditor dialed in. The CFO's jaw set. Darius arrived 10 minutes late, charming apology in tow, then froze at the screen. He recovered with a laugh. "Oh, I've heard about this. It's a known workaround. Everyone does it to shave costs." Arlen's voice was even. "We don't," he said. "We do not redirect product without complete chain of custody proof. We don't partner with companies that don't exist in the daylight. There are silences that end careers and silences that begin repair." The room held the second kind. Heavy, humane. Legal cleared her throat and suggested a formal inquiry. Compliance sketched the scope. The outside auditor offered to oversee. No one raised their voice. No one threw a glass. The work of justice often looks like paperwork done with care. The inquiry, blessed by the board, moved with the speed of truth when it is given a lane. Emails, invoices, text messages that once formed a noose around Arlen now knitted into a net around the scheme. The mirror logs he'd set up months ago provided signatures that couldn't be forged. The very tactics that had framed him, selective screenshots and carelessly broad access, now landed squarely on the person who had authored them. Darius tried to pivot. He volunteered to lead a task force to learn from lapses. He held a town hall and spoke about shared responsibility. He sent Arlen a midnight message. "We're brothers. Let's keep this inside." Arlen stared at the words and felt a sorrow older than the company. He typed back, "We keep this in the light." The board placed Darius on leave pending the findings. In the week that followed, news stirred but did not feast. The company had pre-audits, a culture of transparency, clean processes held up by many hands. Without scandal's oxygen, rumor struggled to burn. The staff kept showing up, because their work mattered beyond one man's shortcuts. When the report landed, it described not a mastermind villain but a pattern of clever small thefts justified by efficiency, allowed by a culture that had occasionally mistaken charisma for competence. It recommended restitution, leadership restructuring, and a public commitment to ethical procurement practices that turned out to be the very protocols Arlen had already put in place. The board asked Arlen to step in as interim CEO. He accepted on one condition, that they invest in a program he drafted called the Mirror Year. 12 months where executives rotate through every level of the company, not as observers but as workers. It would be humble. It would be inconvenient. It would change them. The condition was approved. That night, Arlen went home and sat at the same kitchen table where a year ago he had slept himself into a new timeline. He set a mug down and whispered into the regular light, "Thank you." He did not ask for more miracles. He had learned that the best ones look like people choosing the right thing with no audience. The mirror year began with curiosity and a few eye rolls. Photos appeared on the internal message board, the CFO scanning barcodes with the inbound team, the legal lead learning the rhythm of a pallet jack, a senior designer folding cartons with a kind of respectful awe for the physics of corrugation. Darius, suspended but not yet terminated, was invited to participate as a path toward restitution. Legal advice was split. Arlen overruled the chorus that wanted only distance. "If we want transformation," he said, "we can't pretend people vanish. Accountability is not exile, it's repair." On a rainy Tuesday, Darius showed up to the warehouse in a clean pair of boots that would not stay clean. The lead, a woman named Tilda who had seen more years and storms than both brothers combined, handed him a safety vest and a box cutter. "We cut away from ourselves," she said. "It's a rule you can apply to more than cardboard." The joke landed, gentle and sharp. For 8 hours, Darius stacked, lifted, labeled, and learned the names of people who had never been tagged in his posts. He ate at a metal table littered with coffee rings and stories. Someone asked about the town hall where he'd said, "Everyone does it." He looked at his hands and said, "I said that because I did it." The admission hung in the air, vulnerable, unspun. The program didn't make saints. It made neighbors. Executives returned to their desks with different shoulders. The procurement team redesigned templates after spending a night shift recovering a late truck. HR gamified safety suggestions and awarded a trophy that was, frankly, hideous, but beloved. Lumenwell shifted from brand to belonging in a way that did not fit neatly into a deck, but showed up in the way people held doors for one another. Arlen visited each rotation quietly. He asked simple questions. He picked up a broom if one needed picking up. With Darius, he said little and watched more. The flamboyance had drained from his brother like dye in water, leaving someone who looked younger. When arrogance leaves, the face underneath can surprise you. One evening, as the building emptied to the hush of mops and the bloom of vacuum lines on carpet, Darius waited outside Arlen's office. "I thought power would make us safe," he said, the sentence unadorned. "I thought shortcuts were just clever paths with better scenery. I made you carry a weight I had tied to your name." He looked up. "I'm sorry. Apologies are not magic keys. They are seeds." Arlen weighed the words not as currency but as beginnings. "Restitution is part of the apology," he said. "You'll pay back what you took. You'll face the board. And you'll keep showing up in the places where nobody claps." Darius nodded. "I will. Not to earn back a throne. Just to earn back my name." The moment the title promised, the scheming brother suffering the fate he once gave, did not arrive as humiliation. It arrived as humility. Darius lost the spotlight he had weaponized against Arlen. He experienced public accountability, the very thing he had engineered to punish another. But in this telling, suffer meant to undergo. And what he underwent was the long, sometimes tiring, always honest work of being a person among people. News leaked, as it does. But the narrative that took root was less sensational than the world liked. Company confronts internal lapses with innovative empathy and rigorous controls. The share price dipped and then steadied. Customers wrote notes that said, "Thank you for treating integrity like a product feature." In private, Arlen allowed himself to grieve the year he had lost in the old timeline. He grieved the trust that would never be what it was. He grieved the boyhood days when he and Darius believed the world was a ribbon waiting to be cut. Grief, he learned, is not a wall but a door. You walk through, and on the other side there is a garden you tend with both hands. The board's final decision arrived on a clear morning. Darius would be removed from the executive slate, required to complete restitution under legal agreement, and invited, if he chose, to remain in the mirror year program as a contractor. It was both consequence and corridor. He accepted without theatrics. At the company meeting where Arlen was confirmed as CEO, he kept the speech short. "We did not save our story by finding a villain," he said. "We saved it by loving the boring, brave work of telling the truth in small ways every day. Our products bring light into rooms. Our practices must do the same." After the applause, warm, not wild, he returned to his office and opened the notebook with a sturdy spine. On the first page, the original 4 words stared back. Records, people, patterns, mercy. He added a 5th. Future. The second dawn of his life had taught him that revenge is a satisfying plotline, but a poor design principle. Systems outlive feelings. If you architect them with honesty and care, they hold when your temper or tenderness falter. He made open audits a permanent fixture, not as punishment but as a rhythm. He funded scholarships for logistics workers who wanted to become operations analysts, and for analysts who wanted to spend 6 months on the loading dock. He redesigned the photo wall in the atrium to include candid shots from the mirror year, hands on tape guns, faces lit by forklifts' blinking lights, a CFO laughing at a smudge of grease on her cheek. One afternoon, Darius knocked on the glass and lifted a hand in a question that was also a greeting. Arlen waved him in. They sat without titles. "I keep wanting to say, 'Thank you for saving me,'" Darius said. "But that makes you the hero of my story and leaves me as the problem you solved. I think what I mean is, thank you for not throwing me away." Arlen smiled, tired and true. "We're all more than our worst act," he said. "Including me." He closed the notebook. "What will you do next?" "Work," Darius said simply. "Real work. Maybe I'll help other companies set up the kind of controls you built here. And I'll keep showing up with Tilda's team on Tuesdays. Turns out I like the order of a well-packed pallet." They shook hands like men crossing a small bridge apiece at a time. When Arlen walked through the atrium later, the afternoon sun turned the glass into soft gold. He stopped at the photo of the ribbon again. He thought of how rebirth isn't always mystical. Sometimes it's a calendar opening to the same month with a different pen in your hand. Sometimes it's a second chance that looks like paperwork and apologies and hours that no one will ever write songs about. The title of his life had promised a reckoning. 2 brothers reborn. He made the scheming brother suffer the fate he once gave. And yes, fate had returned to its sender, but not as spectacle. It had come as a mirror and a map. The suffering had opened into understanding, the accountability had ripened into change, and the 2 brothers, reborn in humility and truth, continued not as rivals or legends but as people, one guiding a company by the light of ordinary goodness, the other learning the dignity of quiet repair. In the end, the atrium doors opened and closed, days blooming like steady flowers. Lumenwell kept shipping light into rooms, and the people who made that possible went home with shoulders a little looser, knowing that the place where they worked had chosen to be decent, on purpose, again and again. And that, Arlen decided, was the best kind of ending. One that kept beginning.